got the moon behind them or the earth.
Not showing up on my machine, but okay. So I'll assume we can get started. Let's convene the Finance Committee meeting for Tuesday, June 30th, 2020. Okay, so Gene, on our agenda is a fiscal 21 budget discussion. And I think that what we had hoped a month ago or 4 weeks ago was that we'd have a little more clarity by tonight of where we might stand with the state. I know there were other issues also to discuss. Dean, do you know, did the other towns, the other 12 towns in the Valley all have their town meetings in the last week to 10 days?
I know that I went to Uxbridge's and they handled it very well. It was a successful town meeting. They put limitations onto the time. You had to sit social distancing. They did a good job. I was pretty impressed. They even walked you out so you didn't congregate on the way out. You were ushered out, so they did row by row. They had social distances to the microphones. You had to wear masks. They had, hand sanitizer available. I thought they did a good job. They had it in the Valley Chapel. That I think about 1,000 people.
Wow.
Again, it was social distancing.
1,000 people?
If it was in full capacity, it's pretty big in there. Have you been in there?
I have not.
But they had every other row blocked off. So, they did a good job. I encouraged the town clerk to reach out to the Uxbridge town clerk. But as far as the state's concerned, they sent an email saying they would not have state numbers. And they would be using the they would be using house numbers for now. So there's been no change in information.
Do you have any perception of when you'll get state numbers that you would normally need for FY21?
I do not. And like I said, I think they sent out the memo so we wouldn't keep asking.
Fair enough. Okay, what is the town running on starting tomorrow?
So we submitted a July spending plan budget. We were approved for that. We will have to submit a spending plan for each month up until town meeting. So by around the 15th of the month for the following month. The interesting part of this, though, it's not really a spending plan. You have to submit to them 1/12 of your prior fiscal year's budget. So even though we may be spending less than that, our spending plan has to be at least that. So it's interesting. So having the revenues not available didn't make any difference because we still have to submit a spending plan based upon last year's numbers.
Howard, I have a question.
Sure.
So Gene, I asked this last time and Matt answered it, but is the DOR really looking over your shoulder right now, or do you have you can sort of figure it out yourself?
Well, we have to submit a spending plan that has to be approved by DOR.
Okay.
I did it by broad category. So I did general government, kind of vote the budget, general government, public safety, recreation. I did those broad categories, and that's what I submitted again, but it had to be 1/12. So they were looking at what we call the recap, which is a report that we file when we're getting ready to set the tax base. And they're looking at one line on that, and they're saying it had to be 1/12 of that one line. So
okay.
Since my spending plan to them had to be increased to meet that minimum. Because
do they care how much detail you use, or do they really look at that one line basically?
They did accept the one line and approve it based upon those subcategories. The school was one number, enterprise was one number, and then, like I said, I submitted on the town side, general government, public safety. I did those broad categories, and they did approve that.
Okay.
And I put the amounts that I had to reach under employee benefits, because that's really where we'd spend a lot. But the reason why we're not at 1/12 is because the school's not in session. And the teachers are paid, or some teachers are paid over the summer, some are paid a lump sum, but the teachers that are paid over the summer, it doesn't charge against FY21, it charges against FY20. So the staff that you're paying over the summer is the custodians, the admin people, and the superintendent down, and that's about it. And any summer pays if they're running the summer program. So the payroll costs now are light for the school, because if we are paying it, most of it's going against FY20. So that will be the same for July and August, and then in September we would factor, the school numbers are going back up because school will be in session.
Right. All right. Thanks, Gene. Appreciate that.
Anyone else? Any questions for Gene?
Do they plan to bring the kids back in the fall?
I don't think that has been decided yet. I don't know, and Heather can speak to that probably better than I can.
Oh, that's right, Miss School Committee.
Yes, Heather.
There has
You're
been no
hot.
determination yet. The new superintendent doesn't start until tomorrow.
They what?
The new superintendent doesn't start till tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
So we're waiting for the superintendent and then more from the Massachusetts School Association to come out with further guidance. I mean, they've done it, they've got sent guidelines, but nothing concrete. And then we have to do, the school department has to do, I think, 3 course of actions that have to be submitted. So we haven't discussed yet at length what that plan will be.
Okay.
So
Well,
Heather, okay.
Yep. Yeah, go ahead, Dick.
So Heather, for you guys on the school committee, are you waiting on information that comes from outside the town, like state stuff, or is it pretty much once you guys meet again, it's just kind of up to the town people to figure out stuff?
The state has set guidelines to us. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. State has set the guidelines. Again, the superintendent doesn't start until tomorrow. Once he gets on board, we'll sit at the school committee will sit and come up with the course of action.
Okay. Anyone else for Gene?
One quick one. Howard, as I understand it, we're saying all the other Blackstone Valley towns have had their town meetings, and
That's not clear at the moment.
okay.
That is not clear to me at the moment.
Grafton, I know, did theirs. They also did their overrides and it passed. So I know Grafton did theirs. I want to say Millbury did theirs too as well.
I believe Sutton and Northbridge also held theirs. I know they were holding their elections today. I can, at this point,
So that kind of leads into my question, Gene. Is there a way we can get for the finance committee a quick, just simple table on saying, which towns have had and which towns have not had their town meeting, and then what if their budgets were slashed by X amount or percent, or just a general understanding of what their overall changes or adjustments due to the COVID crisis has been?
I know Uxbridge used the House numbers, so that's the governor's numbers back in January.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying is, can we have that in writing so I understand exactly what is going on locally?
I can reach out. This is a very tough week for me. I don't know when your next meeting is going to be, but we're in the middle of 2 fiscal years. I'm doing split payrolls. But we can try to do a survey and have that available for your next meeting.
Does the DOR have something like that?
I don't think they would have that level of detail now. They wouldn't know what projections they would use. Because remember, we're not setting the tax rate yet. So DOR is not looking at that until they look at the tax recap. By then we should have the cherry sheet and they'd be looking to make sure that we met that number. We are looking to have a September annual town meeting here and a November special town meeting, and then we set the tax rate. So DOR is looking for the information after that special in November. They'll know whether or not the towns have convened, whether or not they've had their town meeting, but I don't think they would know the revenue source until the tax recaps are submitted.
Okay, so then there's no way to find out any of this information?
No, I would have to individually call the town accountants and see what they did.
Phil, are you looking for maybe one or two as a sample, as guidance?
So I'm just kind of interested in, obviously I'm trying to understand how many other towns have already had meetings, didn't have meetings, and how did they approach this whole thing? I mean, are we the only town that hasn't had the meeting? Are we the standout because we're that much more advanced, or is it because we don't have enough room to put people in a COVID-free room? Or that I'm just trying to get a general understanding of what's going on.
Well, were you part of the joint meeting a month ago, Phil, with the Board of Selectmen?
Yes.
Okay, wasn't that discussed at that meeting?
I think there was mostly more like logistical thoughts, concerns, and that, but that doesn't point to what other towns are doing and how they've done it, or not asking about logistics, but more just in terms of if they did conduct their meeting, how did they approach this COVID thing? Did they slash their budget by 20%? Did they find $1 million sitting around somewhere, or just generalization so we understand what other folks in the Blackstone Valley are doing?
We can try to do a survey. I can guarantee you that no one found any money. That's actually a taboo statement to say. I think
Jean,
the biggest
Jean,
whether or not they use the house numbers or some reduction off the house numbers. I think that's what you're going to find.
Jean, would you be able, I suspect we're going to schedule our next meeting for probably mid-August, unless you tell us we need to have a quick meeting like this again in late July. But would you be able to at least reach out to one or two towns to try to get their numbers for our next meeting?
Sure.
I mean, if you want to, Gene, I would be willing to do that as well if you want to guide me in a couple of people to talk to.
I think it may be a little bit easy for me, only not that you're not capable, but the terminology that we use may be a little different. So I would probably ask some pointed questions to see whether or not they use free cash, is what percentage of the state aid was reduced. Did they look at Chapter 70 as well as UGA? Or let me see what I can find out. I'll reach out to some area.
I'm just, in general, I'm just looking for who conducted the meetings and what percentage decrease they have to their overall budget. If you know how Matt was talking about 10% decrease, trying to get this certain amount of cuts because of the fact that we may have 3% at the end, I think is what he was saying. But that's all I'm looking for is a comparison, so I understand how we are doing. And I guess if it sounds like everybody's saying there were other local areas that have already had their meetings, I'm wondering how did they do this without any numbers or anything like that. That's all.
Okay, I'll find out some information for the next meeting once you set a date.
Thank you, Jean.
Thank you.
Jean, to the comment, do you need a meeting at the end of July again, or can we go to mid-August?
I think at this time I don't have any reserve fund transfers or interdepartmental transfers. Now I have until July 15th for that. So I'm gonna say at this point, I do not need a meeting until August, but I would probably let you know by the 10th if I did.
10th of July.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
And if I did need one, it would be a very quick meeting and it would be for reserve fund transfers.
Okay. So candidly, it appears as though, on tonight's agenda, the budget discussion is that there's no further information practically to discuss. And I'm not sure Matt would be able to enlighten us any further, even if he were available. Gene, I think you've indicated the reserve fund transfer part of the agenda in the intra-office department transfer part. You don't have anything, correct?
Not at this time, no.
Okay. So I asked to put the BVT letter onto the agenda. Well, I actually asked if it could just be put in the old business, new business portion of the agenda. I don't believe, I'm not sure if I circulated. So Matt had sent to me a couple of weeks ago a letter from the president of Blackstone Valley, basically suggesting that while he was aware that there might be opportunities under one or more of the stimulus programs to obtain special funding for the school district or districts, that it struck me that the way the BVT letter was worded was that there was no direct vehicle for BVT to get money out of that kitty or those kitties on its own. And so the BVT letter basically had to ask, I assume all 13 towns got a similar letter saying, could you please think of us and keep us in your hearts and your minds as you approach either the state or the federal government for specific assistance based on, you know, COVID budgets or even opportunities. That was the way I took the letter. Gene, did you see that letter? Gene, did you?
Included it in the email, so they have a copy of it. It was the last item that I scanned in.
Okay.
So I did see it.
Was that about the take you had as well, that the BVT didn't have a direct mechanism for seeking funds from the stimulus programs, and they were asking each town to consider BVT's needs as the towns approached their own school needs?
That is what the letter said, and I don't know if that is a true statement. I don't know if there are any other funds besides these available for schools. There could be other grants. This one relates to the 700+ thousand that we received called the CARES grant. So each community received monies under that grant that they did not receive. You know, if the schools have access to other funds other than the CARES Act.
I don't want to go too far out on just kind of memory or generalizations. Would Matt have a better ability to give us an idea of what he believed Douglas may or may not be entitled to as it currently stands under CARES?
Well, I know the number for our Douglas is 789,454.
Gene, so my memory in one of our last meetings was that either you or Matt started to have a projection of what might be the anticipated loss based on other traditional sources of income for the next fiscal year. And to be honest, I thought the projected number was in the 700 range. And I had remembered the CARES number for Matt being low 700. Your number was just high 700. Is there someone who can, you know, to Phil's concerns about, and everyone's concerns about, you know, budget shortfalls, would we be able to get someone by a mid-August meeting who could give us that, you know, here's the shortfall number and here's the CARES fill-in number?
Well, we don't have any permission to use the CARES Act for a supplement to the revenue budget. So right now, the only thing we can use it for is expenses related to COVID. So I've already submitted, I sent in my second submission today for the CARES Act. The first was just about 30,000 and today's was just shy of 10,000. So we are submitting against that number. We are being very conservative here, as we are usually with all our revenue sources, and in the hopes that they will, say you can use this to offset some of the revenue losses. But we have not received any guidance on that yet.
So I apologize. The 700 plus at the moment is the Douglas line item for direct CARES related expenses.
At this time, that's what it has to be used for.
Are you suggesting that your perception is that there may be a time in the future where that expands?
I'm suggesting that they said that's a very slight possibility. So again, we're being conservative, but back to Heather's point, we don't know what the school is going to need to get ready for the fall. How are they going to be? Are they going to have to buy PPE equipment? Are they going to have to do, buy other things? So the CARES Act would also be used if, for townwide to, satisfy the needs that we may have related to COVID in the fall as well. This is going through December 31st, I believe. So it didn't have to be spent before June 30. And again, like anything else, we're just, we're pretty good about being conservative here. So even the departments that submitted were careful about how they submitted against this. We have not filed for FEMA reimbursement. That you need to file as a source of time period. And I was concerned with not having the numbers for the school lunch, the community food outreach program yet. I didn't want to close that door. So I have not filed FEMA reimbursement yet.
Any other questions to this point?
So that's 789, 454 is really for COVID only related expenses.
At this time, that's our direction.
A lot of masks.
Well, it's not just masks. Again, some of the community food outreach program was on there. Any PPE equipment. We had staff members that tested positive on public safety side that we had to backfill and cover, provide coverage for. We also, the CARES Act was a little more broad in how you can spend the money. So the software to allow the Zoom meetings or whatever the heck the Board of Selectmen use over there is under the CARES Act. So it's unlike FEMA. FEMA is more restrictive. We were able to use the CARES Act to cover the expenses we wouldn't normally have had if it wasn't for COVID. FEMA is more restricted to public safety, PPE for public safety. We have plexiglass in front of all our desks now that we submitted under the CARES Act. So if anybody, we're not open to the public, but we do greet the public and bring them in if they schedule an appointment. So if you come into the offices, there's plexiglass in front of all our desks. So there was a cost associated with that we didn't have built into our FY20 budget.
And this is a fund that basically, as the expenses accrue, you guys get reimbursed?
Yes, we have to submit a form. At some point, I'm sure they're going to do an audit. I have a detailed spreadsheet that shows what is in each category by vendor. And they do reimburse us. They did reimburse quite quickly on the 30,000. I submitted it on June 3rd, and I think I had the money within 2 weeks. It's pretty good. I did, like I said, I did the second submission today because I don't like my accounts to be in a negative as of June 30. So we did a second submission with expenses through June 30 today.
Nice.
Gene, do we have any meeting minutes? Oh, I'm sorry, Dick, go ahead.
So Gene, as you look ahead to the next couple months, is there anything that you're really kind of nervous about or concerned about, or do you feel kind of steady as she goes for July and August?
I want town meeting. until we have town meeting, I'm always going to be nervous.
Okay, got it.
You know, the month is, it's what we have to live with because that was what was decided. But as I explained earlier, it is not a spending plan. You have to submit 1/12. I can't put a budget in. It's going to be challenging.
When's the proposed time for the town meeting in the fall? Will it be in September?
September 12th right now. And Howard, to answer your question, if you looked at my attachments, you had the town meeting timeline, you had the June 2nd Finance Committee meeting minutes, and then you had the email from Dr. Fitzpatrick. September 12th is the tentative date, or I guess the date set right now. The calendar, and Suzanne backed up from that date, so you can see when you have to have, you know, we have to have the delivery to the post office, when you have to have your public hearings, all that has to be done before. Returning flyer to Suzanne is August 20th.
September 12th is a Saturday, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
I think you have to listen to the board's meetings or maybe reach out to Keith Bernard to see where they stand. They were talking about many options.
Right.
I thought Uxbridge handled theirs pretty well. I did pass that information along and I did ask them to reach out. I don't even know if you can have it if they had it at the Valley Chapel.
We don't have a place that big in our town though, do we?
No, but someone said you could have town meeting out of town. So I'm not sure if that's true or not true. I think that's under the purview of the moderator
Oh, okay.
and the town clerk. I would defer to them.
Okay. Anything else?
So back to the scheduling, Howard. Mid-August is going to be late to meet the deadlines because August 18th is the deadline to get the flyer to the FinCom so they can vote on recommendations.
So Gene, I've got August 4th here. Does that seem about right? 5 weeks out
To have your first meeting?
for our next meeting?
I think
I'm busy
you'll
that
be
night.
busy.
I'll be gone that night, Howard, August 4th.
Okay, thanks, Dick.
But others
Sorry,
might.
Gene?
So I would probably, that would be the latest I would go for your first meeting is August 4th.
Well, so we can have Dick present because why not, right, Dick? How about July 28th?
That'd work.
Well, isn't that fun? July 28th.
I'll be at my beach house, but I'll dial in.
Heather, we're all going to be at your beach house.
Yeah,
guys.
where is
You
it,
don't have to
Heather?
dial in.
What's
Heather,
the
what-
address at that place?
Where's your
In
beach
there.
house?
Narragansett, Rhode
Oh.
Island.
That works. Yep.
There you
Either.
go.
I like Rhode Island beaches.
If
Yeah.
the town moderator can have town meeting anywhere, the finance chair can order the town finance meetings anywhere.
Sure.
Heather,
I'll
is
social
the
distance and bring my beach chair.
Is
See,
the
there you go,
restaurant
Gene.
still- Heather,
There
is
you
the
go.
Spain restaurant still down there?
Aunt Carrie's or Iggy's.
The Spain restaurant, is that
Oh,
still?
that's, yeah, Spain, yes.
Well, they've been there for what, 35 years, 40
At
years?
least. Yeah. It's one of our places we go when we're down there.
So do
Yeah.
you like Iggy's? Which one do you like better?
Iggy's.
Yeah.
And who has the best seafood chowder, would you say?
Iggy's.
Okay.
Can we
Well-
have the meeting that day at like, maybe 10:30, 11 in the morning so we can enjoy the beach for the rest of the day?
Lynn, it seems we need sampling time, don't we?
Yeah.
Right?
Put that on the agenda.
That's exactly right. These meetings get more fun.
Mm.
All right. So
So
we've
July-
got the meeting minutes from the June 2nd meeting.
Howard, are we going to meet on July 28th then?
I think we are.
Okay,
Yes, if the 5 folks here, one way or another, think they can make it, they're still like this. There's still not a physical presence. So have laptop will travel. Again, look, sincerely, I'm aware that the summer meetings are just different. They're a little harder. They're more intrusive to a volunteer group. So we'll do July 28th. We'll try and cover the ground we need to cover and get everybody back to their beach chairs. All right.
Heather, do you have good internet down in Narragansett?
Yes.
Okay.
We won't need it. We'll all be social distancing together.
That's right.
Oh my God, we can get off this internet stuff.
I
All right.
hate
Meeting minutes, June 2nd. Does everyone have them available from Jean's email?
Yes.
Yep.
Has everyone reviewed them? I will entertain a motion to approve them.
So moved.
I second.
All those in favor?
I
Hi.
Opposed? Okay, those pass unanimously. And Jean, you've got a line here, Finance Committee fiscal year 20 payroll. Are we getting paid?
No, Heather is kind enough to come in and process payroll for me and sign off on payroll. So I wanted to provide a list of expenditures that we paid during FY20. So that's also on the attachment to the email. For purposes of the invoices that Heather has approved, most of them are minutes from Mary.
Yep.
She's the minute taker. And I just want you to know that we didn't spend as much this year as we have in previous years because we had one less town meeting, so we didn't mail out the flyer. However, next fiscal year, we will be mailing out 3 flyers.
Okay.
Postage and the printing costs for 3 of them.
Does the remainder of our budget roll back at midnight tonight as not used?
It rolls back for, well, July 15th, we can have any FY20 expenses submitted to me. You don't have any additional ones, even for Mary. The next payroll will be on FY21 because she will do the work in FY21. So this should be where your budget stands. The next payroll goes out.
Okay.
There are any bills that you haven't submitted to me yet, which I don't think that happened.
Old business, new business.
Can I circle back to the calendar a little bit? Are you going to meet July 28th and August 4th? And then have your public hearing after on the 18th?
Gene, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to reserve meetings after July 28th based on what happens at the meeting on July 28th.
Okay.
No offense, but nothing happened tonight. And it's just, I don't know what we'll know on July 28th. And frankly, even with the COVID part of this still a moving target, we don't even know if September 12th is going to be a definitive date.
Even if we don't have information for revenues, we will have to make a decision and we will have to follow the timeline to have the meeting on September 12th. So we still have to go backwards from that town meeting date to where you can hold a public hearing. The question is, what's going to be your comfort level? If DOR, we may be in the same position we would have been if we had a June town meeting. We may not have revenues for the state. So, you have to be prepared to react to that. I don't know that DOR is going to have revenue numbers by July 28th. I didn't mean to waste your time tonight, but
you didn't waste our time, not at all. It was necessary for everyone to have an update, even if it was just that we still don't have substantially more information.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
No, it's okay.
Right.
Gene, so I'm going to still not schedule beyond July 28th.
Okay,
I'd like to see the July 28th meeting and what we know and where everything is at. And then everybody is aware that we may all of a sudden in August have that quick set of meetings that would normally have in March and early April.
it also may be helpful for you to at least look back in the meeting minutes. If you wanted to look at some of the department's budget, refresh yourself. If you needed to meet with any departments, just let me know ahead of time so I can, again, it's summertime, so people may be on vacation. But if you needed to meet with any of the departments again, just let me know in advance.
But Gene, maybe you're trying to convey something that I'm missing. There are no substantial changes, particularly vis-a-vis increases to budget proposals since we met with departments earlier. All that I expect to hear is that folks are needing to make cuts. I'm presuming essentially almost pro rata through the departments based on projected lower revenues.
That is true. I think if you look at the selectmen's meeting, there was some talk about changes in restructuring the community development that was brought up. I don't know where that's going to stand. I think, Howard, you were CC'd on an email from Stephen Ziff.
I'll have to take a look at that.
Yeah, so again, if you listen to, the Board of Selectmen's meeting, just to make sure that that's still the case. But you're right, I think there's some discussion on the board level to reduce the budgets by a dollar amount. I don't know that number off the top of my head. And how is that going to be met? They were talking about a 1% for the school. So there are changes that are being proposed in anticipation of state aid being reduced. And, it's important that the Finance Committee understand what those changes are and how it's going to impact, the town.
When will we know what those proposed changes are?
I think it would probably be a good idea if maybe you sent an email prior to the July 28th meeting to Matt and ask him a status of where they stand, what his recommendation is. Because I believe the board voted last meeting, and again, it could change tonight. I'm not at that meeting tonight. I'm with you, to meet a target number and kind of work off that target number. So I think it may be important to have that information for your July 28th meeting.
I know that Matt is sending me very preliminary soft numbers, but so far I haven't given those any particular weight, since even from him, they're being represented as particularly soft and nothing that can be relied on.
It is extremely frustrating because we're spinning our wheels all the time because you don't know what the state's going to give us for revenue. So you're doing these what if scenarios all the time, which is, really it's disappointing in the state. I mean, if they had given us a number and saying that you're getting $100, that's what you're getting, then we can meet that number. But the unknown is very frustrating.
I don't mind reaching out to Matt to ask him to have something for us for July 28th. But again, to the extent it's extremely, it's not based on anything new, I don't know how useful it is. Gene, could you convey to Matt, and I'll do the same via email, I would like him to be able to participate in the July 28th meeting.
I will definitely do that.
Okay. And Heather, I guess I find myself looking toward you on school, and I don't want to cross to the school committee because you're not here tonight officially in that capacity. So if you're okay, just generally, does the school committee anticipate when they might meet to figure out where they need to be?
I'm not speaking on behalf of the school board.
Yeah.
I just know
Yeah.
that budget discussions have been going on, ongoing, but until the superintendent comes on board,
Got
there's
it.
a projected baseline.
Fair enough.
So again, we'll know more tomorrow.
I think I understand my answer. I got it.
But the school boards, they meet the entire summer. So my next week is next Wednesday is my next school board meeting. So school board is still meeting every 2 weeks.
Okay. Okay. I might ask to have a representative then available in the July 28th meeting in an official capacity that could speak to us about the status of where the school committee is and where they think they'll be in their request, or where they want to be at least, and where they think the town might be in terms of meeting their request.
Jean, are you okay sending that submittal over? Because I'm like a conflict, I think, because I'm
I
on
agree.
finance and
Jean,
schools.
that was, I apologize. Well, Heather's pictures on my screen, that was directed at Jean. I agree with that, Heather.
So you want to have the chair of the school committee along?
No, I would like any representative from the school committee who would be able to be present in an authorized behalf, on behalf of the school committee, to be able to just speak to us on July 28th as to what status is of both their perception of their request, given evolving numbers and COVID, preparation, and also what their perception is of where they think the town may be with regard to their request.
Would it be unreasonable to see if we could get the new superintendent to come?
Yes.
Well, anytime I send a request to the school committee, I always request that the superintendent and the business manager be available as well.
Lynn, I didn't mean to jump on that so quickly, but I think I'm trying kind of, and I'll defer then to you, Lynn, and to the group, but I think I was trying to keep it a little more at July 28 at least, maybe a little less formal, but to the extent we feel, and it's a new superintendent coming in, they're going to need to get their feet under them.
Okay.
I'm not sure I want to put them on the spot that early. I'm kind of looking for kind of topical information in that July 28 meeting to then be able to address Jean's concerns about where we have to be for a schedule heading forward. But again, I've said it, and Jean, it's not meant offensively at all. Tonight's meeting is really a complete placeholder. And so I'm looking to see on July 28 where that place is. And I've got a concern it won't be moved very far.
I'm concerned as well.
Yeah, I think we're going to see more of the same.
And then what I'd really like to have a sense of on July 28 is how realistic that September 12th date continues to be. And I know Jean will be clamoring for it, but nobody knows today where we'll be in terms of public safety too, and the numbers. Look, that joint meeting, they didn't punt on June town meeting. It seemed in the end they didn't punt because of COVID, surprisingly to me. They punted because of a perception that they didn't have sufficient numbers. Jean, we don't know that they're going to have new numbers by September 12th or even backed out sufficiently for the public hearing, correct?
Jean, you're muted.
I'm muted. I'm sorry. Somebody just came into my office. I did. Question.
So Jean, we have no guarantee that we'll have numbers early enough in late July, early August to satisfy the board that they'll have the math they need to head forward with a public hearing and then an ability to have a September 12th town meeting, correct?
I know people, I don't know how to say this delicately, but we have to have a town meeting. We cannot continue the month-to-month budgets. We have to be able to put a budget in place we have to set a tax rate. Certain things have to happen in order to set the tax rate. We need the revenue back into the town. At some point, we may have to draw a line in the sand and say, yeah, we're going to use house fund numbers and we're going to supplement with free cash. We're going to have to make decisions based on that. I'm hoping DOR doesn't take that long to give us numbers. I'm hoping to have them by the end of July. We don't have them till the first week of July, but you know, I don't know, you know, and if, especially if you're concerned about a second surge, I don't know that waiting past that town meeting, that date is a good idea either. Because then now you're getting ready into the fall, and if the COVID was the concern or concern for some, you know, now you're back indoors and, you know, you're looking for a space that's big enough to be able to social distance. And so I think, yeah, you know, the other communities have done it, and at some point we have to have a town meeting. I don't think we can continue to kick that on the road.
Pitch made. Anyone else? Any other business tonight? I will entertain a motion.
Oh, Howard, is July 28th then our next meeting? That's
I
what we-
apologize if I haven't. Yes. So at this point, yes, Dick, July 28th, 7 o'clock for the next meeting.
So
Got
we
it.
got July 28th and September 12th.
Yeah,
Theoretically.
and to Gene's point, and so everybody here is aware, to Gene's point, on July 28th, we'll try and have an assessment of our schedule
Right.
from July 28th through September 12th, based on what we know on July 28th.
Okay.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
if we don't have numbers by then, is that grounds to have an offsite meeting at Narragansett, or what's going on?
I don't know, Heather really invited us.
We're inviting ourselves. Do we really need her to tell us to come?
Did you notice she didn't give us directions?
I
Not
did.
going over here.
She doesn't even live in Narragansett, Gene.
We can find her.
Dick, are you going on vacation?
We're going to stay home and watch the garden, I think.
There
Oh,
you go.
okay. Are you
It's safe.
retiring?
It's safe.
I've retired. Yep, I've got a little bit of loose end stuff, but so they were going to have a little farewell for me at school, but that got canceled because of COVID. So
Oh, well, congratulations on your retirement.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
We need to have a
congratulations.
one-on-one discussion about Tufts.
I know it. So we'll make it happen. You
Yeah.
bet.
Do you have my email?
I do. Yeah.
Okay, email me and I'll talk to you offline.
We'll have coffee at the picket fence.
Okay, yeah. So
Any
Yeah,
other
good.
motions?
motions, so moved to adjourn.
I've got a
Second.
motion to adjourn from Lynn. I've got a second from Heather. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, thank you all, everyone. I do know
Thank
it's an
you.
inconvenience in the summer, but thank you all